The jobs report are uncovering the reason why the housing market is crashing. I've been covering it for a long time on this channel that the housing market has been showing massive amounts of cracks, but this jobs report uncovers it all. So in today's live stream, we're going to cover it all, including why the jobs market might not be as solid as everybody is talking about. First, let's get into the housing report, as we are seeing the housing prices fall again for the fourth straight month, and it is falling drastically in these four major cities, including where I am here in Tampa, Florida. They've rose 2.3% allegedly in the month of May compared to a year ago, the slowest annual growth since July 2023. So it's slowing down, and affordability still stretched. With inventory constrained, national home prices are holding steady, but barely. But now, let's get into the jobs report, because I think, the housing report shows one thing, but the jobs report is really showing the true strength of the consumer. So we have to take a look at everything to get this holistic picture of what is actually going on. And this job report shows something. It shows that, well, there's some issues here and cracks underneath the surface. I mean, we've seen the political theater going on, and I've been covering that heavily on this channel, where we've seen Trump essentially going at Jerome Powell, telling him, hey, you need to cut interest rates. You need to cut interest rates. But the Trump admin, and they're blaming it on immigration crackdown of the weakening labor market. I don't think that's necessarily the case, because, hey, if this were to make sense, right? If there was abundance of cheap labor, which was coming from immigrants, then their jobs would not be there. Yet there's still no jobs there. So what is that telling you? It doesn't make any sense. There's no correlation here. So I don't necessarily agree with this headline, because there is some sketchiness there. But if you keep looking at the real picture here, the forecasters surveyed Bloomberg estimated jobs labor department growth will gain 109,000 jobs in July, but it's down from 147 in June, and the monthly average of 130,000 this year. So it keeps on going down and down and down. I mean, it's going down, but we're not yelling timber just yet. Even though we did see the stock market snap a 6-day streak of hitting new record highs, and the earnings are all flooding in as the Fed decision came in yesterday, and the Fed decided to not cut interest rates. So everybody has been very cautionary when it comes to the overall market just now. And the reason being is, well, Americans are still very tentative and are hopeful about the growth of the economy. But the reality is consumers have been taking a cautionary tale towards this. Consumer spending was very down earlier last month, but now it seemed to heat up just a little bit, but so did inflation. So we still don't have this inflation thing under wraps, and consumers are sort of battling with it. They're trying to determine whether or not they should be spending or saving at this point in time. And Americans are growing more hopeful about the economy as trade talks progress. I mean, we just had China and the U.S. pause their trade talks and their tariffs again for another 90 days. Look, I know you guys aren't going to the grocery store and looking at the grocery aisles and saying, hey, you know what? Because Trump and China, paused these tariffs for 90 days, we're going to buy these fruit stacks now and maybe get the Welch's instead of the name brand grocery brand. I don't think that's necessarily the case here. But the unique thing is that we did see consumer spending start to heat up. Whether or not, that's because of the tariffs, that's the whole narrative. That's what everybody's going to talk about and say is, hey, it's tariffs this, tariffs that. But the reality is, we look at the numbers, consumer spending did go up, and ever so slightly. And then we've seen consumer confidence climb up 2 points as well. But look, consumer confidence, for the consumer to be considered very confident or at least neutral, that needs to be ranked at 100. The consumer confidence is still at 97.2, showing people's attitudes about the economy have stabilized after deteriorating sharply during spring with the massive tariffs. Of course, they always love to blame those tariffs. And with all this, gold prices could struggle because the consumer is now looking at gold and saying, hey, you know what? I think the economy is going to be doing just all right. So I don't need to be going into gold maybe as drastically as I was before. But as McLovin is saying in the chat, the new digital gold, it seems like more people are flocking into Bitcoin. I don't talk about that too much on this channel, but I think that that's a trend that we will be looking out for and watching here. Because overall in the macro economy, people are always looking for some sort of inflation hedge. And there's a lot of things to uncover here. We've seen, the jobs market look kind of shaky, and we're seeing housing prices fall. And now consumer confidence is like, okay, we think we're ready to break out at this point. So everybody's worried about the assets that have been pumping during this negative time. One of those being gold, right? But I don't think we're directly out of the woods just yet. I mean, Fed's favorite inflation gauge shows consumer prices rose yet again in June. So their inflation gauge showed that prices are increasing, and the central bank continues to monitor the signs. See, these tariff-induced inflation impacting consumers. It's not like we've already had inflation, for quite some time. But hey, you know what? Let's blame these tariffs because that's what we can do. The personal consumption expenditures, PCE, rose by 0.3% on a monthly basis and 2.6 from a year ago, with the headline figure above the estimate economist polled by LSEG. Those figure mark accelerations from last month, reading from 0.1 to 0.23. So the core PCE, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, that I think is just should tell you enough, folks. Let's exclude the food and energy prices because nobody needs those to live, right? It's absolutely crazy. I mean, you can't honestly make it up. It's just shock to me that they still report this stuff with a straight face saying, hey, you know what? Let's take out food. Let's take out energy. We don't need any of that crap. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but hey, you know what? We can't stop. We can lead a horse to water, but we can't make him drink, right, folks? So either way, right? And 2.8 from a year ago, looking at the annual figure. Core PCE still ticked to 2.7 last month, while the monthly figure was also up 0.2%. The Fed policymakers focusing on PCE headline figures. They're trying to get back to that 2% figure, right? So why are they looking to get back to that 2% figure? Well, they're seeing the Dixie roar back. For those of you guys who keep coming to this channel, I appreciate it. I got 5 of you guys in the chat. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and that like button for me. And so you guys could join these other people in the chat, because I want to hear what you guys think about the Dixie. For those of you guys keep coming in and listening, because I know 90% of you guys aren't subscribed just yet. So I hope I can take you over that edge and hit that subscribe button with the bell notifications. But this Dixie, since like just about a week ago, we've seen that go from 97. That's right, 97 to now over 100. See, look at this, 5 days. 97.6 5 days ago. And now we're getting over 105. We don't see positive moves like this that often. Now, this could be for a couple reasons. One of them being the U.S. pausing that, tariff talk with China. Maybe thinks it's the taco trade, right? Where they say Trump always chickens out. That's what they're calling the taco trade these days. Look, man, I have no idea. But either way, I know is that I've been looking at this CME group and I've been watching it. It's pretty interesting because they cut rates the other day. And we see it and now at 38.2%. When this first came right after Powell made that decision, it was at 45%. So we've gotten that down 7%, but it's still a very high number, sitting at 38% chance that we are going to cut interest rates. McLovin saying he didn't expect to see the Dixie above 100 for quite a while. And I agree, honestly. I didn't really think we would see it start to shoot up like we have. But hey, these markets are really unpredictable. And it's interesting because we have such a green day for Dixie and the dollar strength. But then you sit back and you look at the S&P 500, and 5 days it's down 1%. It's been relatively flat. So I think people are looking at the market and trying to figure out which way it's going to move here, and really trying to understand, where this thing is going and headed. But I think in reality, we just have to stay put here because the Dixie is showing that the US is starting to get more strength in the dollar, right? It's not really quite there just yet where everybody wants it to be, ripping and roaring, but we're on the right track. Things are looking very positive here, right? So I think people are going to keep a close eye on what we have going on here. And this jobs report is something that I think everybody should be really keeping a close eye on. Is that, hey, last month we had nearly 40,000 more jobs, and that's just expected. The US has been missing a lot of these expectations. So construction payrolls were up, but this crackdown is allegedly creating a big demand in the supply. I mean, how can you say that, right? It doesn't make any sense to me. Some of these traditional media outlets, they literally contradict themselves within what we read here. So be careful with what you read and what you listen to, folks. Always think about it critically, and I'd love to hear you guys' opinions. So make sure you're telling me in the comments what you guys think as well. Do you guys think I'm out of bounds here? You guys think I'm absolutely crazy? I'm going to keep covering all of this and more. So be sure you're hitting that subscribe button, that like button, telling a friend to tell a friend, and join McLovin in the chat, the GOAT. Always appreciate this guy coming in, and I'll catch you guys all at the next one.